My bully brother lied about graduating from Stanford, so I told his fiancé the truth at their party. I never wanted to write about my childhood, but recent events have made me realize that sometimes you need to let it all out. My older brother Tom has been the source of most of my problems since I can remember. He's 5 years older than me, and unlike what most people say about siblings getting closer as they grow up, we only grew further apart. Our story starts with my parents having Tom while they were still in their second year of college. They were young, scared, and completely unprepared. My grandparents stepped in to help, taking care of Tom while my parents finished their degrees. I think this early separation created something broken in Tom that never really healed. By the time I came along, Tom had already spent 5 years being the only child, getting all the attention. He didn't take well to having a baby sister. My earliest memories are of him pushing me away whenever I tried to crawl near him or pulling my hair until I cried. When I told my parents, they always said it was normal sibling behavior and that he'd grow out of it. He never did. As we grew older, Tom's behavior only got worse. He'd scream at me if I tried talking to him, lock me in rooms, and sometimes even hit me when no one was looking. I was too young to understand that this wasn't normal. I just thought maybe one day he'd start liking me. Mom always tried to solve everything by talking it out, but that never worked with Tom. He'd just sit there, nodding along, then go right back to making my life miserable. Everything changed one summer afternoon when I was 8. Tom asked me to play ball with him in our backyard. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong because he never wanted to play with me. He kept throwing the ball at my face, harder and harder each time. When I begged him to stop, he just smiled and continued. The ball eventually hit me straight in the nose, making it bleed. As I tried to run inside, crying and bleeding, Tom grabbed me and made me promise to tell our parents I had fallen face first on the ground. I was scared and in pain, so I agreed. But my dad had installed security cameras around the house, and when he checked the footage, the truth came out. Mom tried to defend Tom, saying it was probably just an accident, but Dad was furious. Tom just glared at me the whole time, and I knew things would only get worse. After that incident, Tom stepped up his bullying. He'd try to slam car doors on my fingers, push me in school hallways when teachers weren't around, and tell my friends they shouldn't hang out with a snitch like me. He'd steal my lunch money or take my lunchbox, leaving me hungry at school. My best friend Rachel was the only one who stuck by me through it all. She saw right through Tom's act and would share her lunch with me when he stole mine. Sometimes she'd even stand up to him, which made him back off a bit, at least when she was around. Having Rachel help me realize I wasn't the problem, Tom was. When I turned 9, I finally got the anime-themed birthday party I'd been begging for. Tom kept saying nobody would come and called me names for liking weird cartoons. But it turned out to be my best birthday ever. Lots of kids from my class came dressed as their favorite characters. Even Rachel's mom helped decorate with anime posters and made a cake that looked like Pikachu. For once, I felt happy and confident without Tom trying to ruin everything. He spent the whole party sulking in his room, refusing to even sing happy birthday. That party was a turning point for me. Seeing how many friends I had, how people actually liked being around me, it gave me confidence I never had before. I started standing up to Tom. When he'd make fun of me, I'd call him out on his terrible attitude. When he tried to bully me, I'd tell Dad immediately, knowing he'd handle it seriously, unlike Mom, who always tried to smooth things over. This made Tom hate me even more, but at least he started backing off a bit. Middle school was rough because Tom was in high school at the same time. He'd wait for me after school just to embarrass me in front of my friends. He'd tell everyone embarrassing stories about me that weren't even true. But by then, I had a solid group of friends who knew what Tom was like. They'd walk me home in groups so he couldn't bother me. Things really started falling apart when Tom finished high school. While I was doing well in my classes and planning for college, Tom announced he wanted to take a gap year to find himself. Our parents weren't happy about it, but agreed to fund his backpacking trip across Europe for 1 year. That 1 year turned into several, with Tom refusing to even discuss college. He tried becoming what he called a digital nomad, but every job he applied for required a college degree. He ended up doing volunteer work just to have a place to stay and food to eat. Meanwhile, I kept focusing on school, joined the debate team, and even started tutoring younger kids in math. My teachers loved me, and I was on track to graduate with honors. Then I got accepted into my dream university with a partial scholarship. Our relatives wanted to celebrate my achievement, but Tom couldn't handle it. He kept calling Mom, complaining about how they were playing favorites. He said it wasn't fair that everyone was making such a big deal about my college acceptance when they never supported his alternative lifestyle choices. Mom insisted Tom come to my celebration party, even though I would have preferred him not to be there. He showed up and immediately started drinking heavily. He barely said hello to anyone, just kept refilling his wine glass and glaring at people from the corner. Dad tried to get him to eat something, but Tom just pushed him away. When our grandfather stood up to give a toast about how proud he was of both of us, Tom couldn't contain himself. He started laughing and called me the golden child, saying nobody really cared about him and that our parents should have never had two children if they couldn't love both equally. He went on about how unfair it was that Dad wouldn't send him money anymore for his travels while they were paying for my college. For the first time ever, our usually quiet grandfather raised his voice. He reminded Tom about how hard our parents had worked to give him a good life when they had him young, and that his jealousy of me was his own problem to fix. He told Tom that he was ruining what should have been a happy celebration with his selfish behavior. Tom left the party crying, with Mom chasing after him as usual. That night marked the beginning of an even darker chapter in our family's story. Tom moved back in with our parents, supposedly to figure things out, but really just to party with his old high school friends and make everyone miserable. He'd come home drunk most nights, sometimes not come home at all. Dad wanted him to at least get a part-time job, but Tom always had excuses about why he couldn't work normal jobs like everyone else. I was glad to be heading off to college soon, to finally get away from all the drama. But I had no idea that the worst was yet to come, or that my brother's lies would eventually catch up to him in ways none of us expected. I didn't hear much from home during my first year of college. I was busy with classes and making new friends, finally enjoying life without Tom around. But one night, around 2 a.m., my phone started ringing. It was Mom, and she was crying. My heart dropped. I thought something had happened to Dad or my grandparents. But no, it was Tom again. He had gotten drunk at some bar and decided to drive home. He crashed into someone's fence. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but Dad had to pay for all the damages since the insurance wouldn't cover drunk driving. Dad was done with Tom's behavior at this point. He told Tom he had two choices: either start going to therapy and look for a job while living at home, or move out. Tom did what he always does. He tried to blame everyone else. He said Dad was being unfair, that he was going through some things mentally, and that he didn't actually hurt anyone. When that didn't work, he started comparing himself to me again, saying Dad never put these kinds of conditions on me. Dad just looked at him and said, "Pack your bags." Tom tried calling all our relatives for help. He called our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, even some distant cousins. Nobody wanted to take him in. They all knew about his drinking and his refusal to get a real job. That's when he called me. I was surprised to hear from him. He actually sounded nice for once, asking how college was going and if I was making friends. Then he got to the point. He needed money. I had some savings from my part-time job in high school, and despite everything he'd done to me, he was still my brother. I sent him what I could, hoping maybe this would be a turning point for him. I should have known better. The next day, I saw his social media posts. He was at bars, buying drinks for everyone, acting like he didn't have a care in the world. When I texted him about it, he blocked me. That was the last straw. I decided I was done trying to help someone who clearly didn't want to help himself. For the next 3 years, we barely heard from Tom. He'd occasionally call Mom when he needed money, but even she had stopped answering his calls. We all hoped that maybe being on his own would force him to grow up and take responsibility for his life. We were wrong. During my senior year of college, I got an unexpected call from Tom. He sounded different, happy, excited even. He told me he had met someone special last year, a guy named Ryan, and wanted us all to meet him. He asked if I could come home that weekend for dinner. I was hesitant, but Mom and Dad were curious too, so I agreed. When I got home, I hardly recognized Tom. He looked healthy and put together. Ryan seemed like a really nice guy, smart, successful, and clearly head over heels for my brother. During dinner, Ryan kept praising Tom, talking about how lucky he was to have met such an intelligent woman who graduated from Stanford. Dad choked on his drink, and Mom started coughing. Ryan went on about how Tom was always telling him stories about his college days at Stanford, about all the amazing professors he had, and the friends he made there. He said he hoped their future kids would be as accomplished as Tom. We all sat there, stunned, knowing that Tom had never even finished a semester at community college, let alone graduated from Stanford. Tom avoided looking at any of us and quickly changed the subject. After dinner, he and Ryan left in a hurry. As soon as they were gone, Dad exploded. He couldn't believe Tom had lied about something so huge. When Dad called Tom later that night, Tom broke down and admitted that he had faked his college documents to get a job at the marketing firm where Ryan worked. Not only had he lied about college, but he also hadn't told Ryan anything about his past, not about the drinking, the car accident, or any of it. Mom and Dad told him he needed to come clean to Ryan before things got more serious. Tom refused, saying there was no way Ryan would ever find out and that he could handle it if he did. I wanted no part in this mess, so I kept quiet and went back to college. 3 months later, Tom called me again. He and Ryan were engaged. I asked if they weren't moving too fast, but Tom laughed, and said I wouldn't understand since I'd never been in love like this. Then came the real reason for his call. He wanted me to plan their wedding. Not as a bridesmaid or anything. Those spots were already taken by his work friends. He wanted me to be the wedding planner because, according to him, I wasn't as busy as his working friends since I was just a college student. I couldn't believe it. After all these years of treating me terribly, he expected me to drop everything and plan his entire wedding? When I refused, he got angry, saying I was being selfish and that this was what family was supposed to do for each other. He even called Mom and Dad, trying to get them to pressure me into doing it. Mom and Dad suggested that if Tom wanted me to be his wedding planner, he should pay me for my time. Tom refused, saying no sister would ever ask to get paid for such a simple task. He kept sending me messages, but I stopped responding. Even our parents agreed that I was right not to take on such a huge responsibility during my final year of college. But Tom wasn't done yet. He insisted on throwing a big engagement party and demanded that I at least help with that. I agreed to help with small tasks, thinking maybe we could finally start fixing our relationship. I had no idea that this engagement party would change everything. When I arrived at Tom's place after a 6-hour bus ride, exhausted and hungry, he didn't even say hello. Instead, he told me I was late and that some of the servers hadn't shown up. Before I could even put my bags down or say hi to our parents, he pushed me toward the kitchen and told me I'd be serving drinks all night. As I walked around with trays of drinks, watching Tom play the perfect host, something in me snapped. All these people thought they knew my brother, but they had no idea who he really was. Ryan deserved to know the truth about the person he was planning to marry. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to write Ryan a note. I wrote the note quickly in the kitchen, keeping it simple and honest. I explained everything: the fake Stanford degree, the drinking problems, the car accident, and how Tom had been lying to everyone at work. I wanted Ryan to know what he was getting into before he made a huge mistake. The hard part was finding a way to give it to him without Tom seeing. But being a server actually made it perfect. When I brought Ryan his drink, I slipped him the note and whispered that he should read it in private as soon as possible. He looked confused but nodded. About 15 minutes later, Ryan came out of the bathroom looking pale. He walked straight up to Tom in front of everyone and asked if he'd been lying about Stanford. Tom's face went white. Ryan then turned to our parents and asked them directly if Tom had ever gone to college. Dad, who has always believed in honesty, shook his head. The party went completely silent. Ryan's voice shook as he asked Tom how he could lie about something so important. Tom tried to grab Ryan's arm and pull him somewhere private, but Ryan stayed put. He said he was embarrassed to find out like this, right after they got engaged. Some of Tom's co-workers were there, including their manager, and they all looked shocked. Ryan kept going. He said if Tom could lie about something this big, what else had he lied about? How could Ryan ever trust him again? Tom started crying, trying to explain that he only lied because he was scared of losing Ryan, but it was too late. Ryan took off his engagement ring, it was his grandmother's, and placed it on the table. He told Tom he needed space and left with his family. The party fell apart after that. Everyone left quickly, especially Tom's co-workers. I heard someone whisper something about HR as they walked out. Tom just stood there, staring at the ring on the table. I thought about telling Tom it was me who wrote the note, but I knew it would only make things worse. He was already suspicious that someone in the family had told Ryan the truth, but he had no proof. In my note, I had asked Ryan not to mention how he found out, and he had kept his word. The next few days were chaos. Ryan officially called off the engagement and asked Tom to move out of their house. He wouldn't answer any of Tom's calls or messages. Tom lost his job too. Apparently, lying about having a college degree is a big deal in the corporate world. Mom and Dad tried to talk to Tom about it, saying they had warned him this would happen if he didn't come clean himself. But Tom wouldn't listen. He just kept saying that someone had ruined his life on purpose. Some of our relatives suggested I should confess about the note, but I refused. Why should I? Tom had spent his entire life trying to ruin mine. All I did was tell the truth. Tom moved back in with our parents again, but this time he was different. He stopped drinking and actually started looking for jobs he was qualified for. It wasn't easy. Most places wanted to know why he left his last job, and he had to tell the truth. But eventually, he found work at a small local business where the owner cared more about hard work than college degrees. Sometimes I feel guilty about how everything went down. Maybe I should have talked to Tom first, given him a chance to tell Ryan himself. But then I remember all the times he hurt me, all the years of bullying and lies, and I know I did the right thing. Ryan deserved to know the truth, and Tom needed to face the consequences of his actions for once in his life. A few months later, I graduated from college. Tom didn't come to the ceremony, but that was probably for the best. Mom said he's been seeing a therapist and working on his issues. Part of me hopes he really is changing this time, but another part of me isn't ready to forgive and forget just yet. Last week, I got a text from Tom. It was short, just, "I'm sorry for everything." I haven't responded. Maybe someday we'll have a real conversation about everything that happened. Maybe we'll even find a way to be actual siblings instead of enemies. But for now, I'm focusing on my own life and my new job in a different city, far away from all the drama. People keep telling me family is forever and that I should try to fix things with Tom. But I think sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is keep your distance, even from family. Especially from family who have hurt you over and over again. Still, I can't help but wonder what would have happened if our parents had handled things differently when we were kids. If they had gotten Tom help when he first started showing signs of trouble, or if they hadn't let him get away with bullying me for so long. Maybe we could have had a normal brother-sister relationship. The last I heard, Ryan is dating someone new. Good for him. Tom is still single and living with our parents. But he's been sober for 6 months now. Mom says he's different, more humble, more honest. Part of me wants to believe he's really changed, but I've been disappointed too many times before. For now, I'm just taking things one day at a time. I have a good job, great friends, and a life I'm proud of. If Tom wants to be part of that life someday, he'll have to prove he's really changed. And this time, no more lies. Some people say what I did at the engagement party was wrong, that I should have found a better way to handle it. Maybe they're right. But when you spend your whole life being bullied and pushed around by someone, sometimes you have to take drastic action to break free. I don't regret telling Ryan the truth. I just regret that it took me so long to stand up to Tom in the first place. The other day, Mom called to tell me Tom has enrolled in community college. He's starting small, just a few classes at a time. She asked if I would help him with his math homework since I was always good at math. I said I'd think about it. Maybe that's where our story will start again. Not as the bully and the victim, but as two adults trying to build something new from the ashes of our past. But whatever happens next, I know one thing for sure. I'll never let anyone treat me the way Tom did ever again. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the people who are supposed to love us the most.